Alright, welcome back. So if you remember, in the last beta, we did get access to the prototype ships of the new faction, and well, the prototype ships are actually a Omega reward, Omega login reward in the official release of the game, and it is, I think, a one-time thing only, so pretty much those ships are potentially going to be very expensive in the future as they get rarer and of course as their numbers shrink because people are going to lose them, people are going to sell them, and of course some are going to be reprocessed, so the numbers of these ships will slowly degrade over time, and in the near future, or who knows, maybe in the far future, these ships are going to be potentially very rare. Now, for its stats, this ship doesn't have any skill per level bonuses, which is, I guess, acceptable since this ship is meant to be more of a collectible item. But overall, its design and overall its shape does remain the same, and this ship does have a lot of nicknames. People call it the banana ship, people call it even toenail ship, so I guess this ship has a lot of names or nicknames. Well, most of the ship's stats are also around the same than as they were in the open beta and of course in the last beta. And speaking of the colors, there are going to be several variants of the skins for this ship, and one is going to be free, and we are going to get that one tomorrow since that's the next Omega login reward. Now, for its weapons, this is using decomposers, and when you get the ship for the first time, it will be equipped with the civilian decomposers, but we do get the faction ones for free. And I have to say, they do quite a bit of damage, and these decomposers is possible to use on other ships, which I will be testing out just for fun. And they do quite a bit of damage, despite this being a prototype ship, and despite this being a limited edition, or should I say, a rare ship. They still do around 250 to 300 damage, and it will be very interesting to see how they perform in combat. Now for the medium slots, I do have the Webifer and of course the Nosferatu, and in the low slot I do have the medium, I have the small shield booster, I have the particle accelerator, and of course a afterburner. I would replace the afterburner with a micro updrive because the micro updrive will give this ship a very decent speed boost. But the most important module in the low slot is definitely the particle accelerator, since these items increase the rate of fire and increase the damage of the decomposers on this ship, and of course they do that on the other faction battlecruiser, which we will be getting in around 15 days from now, and I'll be testing that ship out as well. The capacitor is also pretty stable. Everything is so far decent. Now, I don't have any rigs on this ship currently, but if I were to go for rigs, I would go for either full DPS or I would go for resistance, since this ship does need better resistance for its shield. It is mostly a shield tank ship. It has a lot of shield and it has a lot of hull, but it doesn't have a lot of armor, and that's pretty much a trait for this new faction. Now in combat, this ship does do a lot more damage than my Caracal and than my two Talvars, which is I guess something that I did expect, since after all decomposers are very powerful, and these ships are after all faction ships, so as such they will of course do a little bit more damage than compared to the normal counterparts. Now of course you don't get any skill per level bonuses with this ship, because this is after all meant to be as a collectionable item and as a prototype. So you will mostly be relying on the roll bonus, which is 75% decomposer damage, and it does do a good job in that aspect. This ship is very good for DPS, and even as a prototype, this ship can easily outperform any other normal tier up to tier 3, tier 4 and tier 5 destroyer. Now since I don't have tier 6 and up destroyers, I don't know what's the DPS on those, but this ship does theoretically have the same DPS as a tier 6, tier 7 or tier 8 destroyer. and it easily outperforms the normal destroyers. So if you encounter this ship in a anomaly, or if you encounter this ship as a opponent in low sec or even null sec, try not to engage it, because in a lot of cases this ship can easily melt most of the frigates and destroyers, and if properly built with proper skills, it can also melt cruisers. So while this ship isn't that effective and isn't meant to be used in that way, it can, however, be used in a more combative way, which is interesting. And I can see potentially people making fleets with these ships, because these ships have very high damage and very high DPS, and with that they can easily make a deadly fleet with those, even with the prototypes. Now, the fully fledged ships of this new faction are going to be, of course, a lot more powerful. You're going to get the skill level bonuses on those, and that automatically increases the damage by at least 100%, pretty much doubling the potential DPS that you can do on these ships. Now for missions, I did play around with this ship, and it does missions quite well. Of course, if I had a micro updrive, things would have been a lot different, because this ship is indeed rather slow, and having a micro updrive, I think, is the better option for this ship than to have a afterburner, since you want to have this ship flying at over 1 kilometer per second in most cases. And the range of the weapons currently is 12 kilometers. They do decent damage per cycle, and it's only a 7 or 6 seconds cycle, so it's pretty fast. It's actually more lethal than my missiles on my Caracal, which is a tier 5 trainer cruiser. So in the terms of DPS, this ship does outperform my tier 5 cruiser currently, which is interesting. And of course, this ship doesn't have the same tank and doesn't have the same speed as that tier 5 cruiser. But in some occasions, I might even fly this ship in a fleet, in a PvP fleet, just to see if I can snatch the top place in the DPS aspect in a lot of situations. But again, that will be rather risky, since this ship is a faction ship, and of course it is a limited edition and only a single time thing. Of course, even if you lose it, if you have these vouchers, you can repair the ship, since I did see the ship being able to be insured, so I think that's good. That makes the ship a little bit less risky to lose, but at the same time, once you run out of the vouchers, then I think you can't recover the ship anymore. So be very careful if you're flying this ship in any risky situation. And well, since it is me, and since I do have to test out a lot of stuff here in the game, I will test this ship out in PvP as much as I did test it out here in PvE, and I think the results are going to be very interesting, since currently the damage output on this ship is at least 2 times greater than on my tier 5 Caracal trainer, and I think that allows for a lot of new possibilities that I can do with this ship, and it will be very interesting to see how it will perform in other situations. But for missions, these are the advanced missions, Calderi and Amar so far, and it does them quite nicely. The one thing that I definitely need is more speed and a little bit higher resistances, so I think I will put rigs to increase the ship's resistances, and I'll replace the afterburner with a micro updrive, and potentially I'll replace the shield booster with the capacitor battery, since I still need that capacitor to be up at most cases, but it does have a rather stable capacitor, especially with the Nosferatu that I have. It is stable at around 20 to 30%, which is decent, and it is pretty good for that. Absolutely a lot better than the Caracal trainer, which loses capacitor very quickly, despite me having good skills for the modules, and despite me actually skilling the expert skills currently, which I think will help me a lot. But of course, you will have this ship be sold on the market at one point, and I do not expect this ship to go cheap. Now I'm thinking sometime in the future, maybe as a subscriber special, or maybe if there is something special in a special occasion, I might give away this ship for free at one point into the future. I'll potentially do that, and I'll definitely see what will happen, but it will definitely be for a special occasion, and we will see. Maybe for 10,000 subscribers or something. I don't know, but I think I'll definitely give away one of these ships for free at one point. Well, and of course, I'll give the ship away fully equipped with modules, and of course with all items. But again, I'll have to think about that, and I'll definitely save that up for a very special occasion. But so far, I am taking out these caracals, and this ship is doing a good job against cavalry vehicles, and so far I have no problems at withstanding the damage, and of course the capacitor is holding out quite nicely. And this ship still does hit like a truck, even pretty much. It is not the same amount of damage that this ship is doing as compared to when it was in the beta. There is I think a 40% difference between the raw damage between now and between the last beta, but this ship still does hit a lot. And if I had all the expert skills for the decomposers, and if I had pretty much everything maxed out, then I think I'd be getting around 300 DPS at max, and I'll definitely test that out when I get the chance to, since this ship is indeed very interesting and currently in the game very unique. So it will be, I'm very curious to see how that will work. And the shield is also quite stable, even though if you aim to make this ship a shield tank, I definitely recommend at least a Mark 7 and up small shield booster, since any shield booster that's under Mark 7 is going to be rather weak on this ship, because this ship does have a lot of shield, and currently, because of my low resistances, they do a little bit more damage than I can repair, and that causes the small losses in the shield itself, which isn't that bad. I can fix with either a rig that will increase my shield volume, or rigs that will increase my resistances. And well, since I value resistances over the volume, I'll definitely go for the resistances on this ship. And well, on to the next mission. Now, so far, as we can see, I am melting these rats very quickly with this ship. It does still a decent amount of damage. Now, I remember in the last beta seeing people use decomposers on a variety of ships, and I'll attempt to do the same actually, since I'm very curious to see if I can use the medium decomposers or the small decomposers on pretty much a destroyer or a cruiser or a battle cruiser that use turrets as their primary weapon. I'm very curious to see if I can make that work. I think I could, and I'll definitely try, since even with those, even when they use these decomposers on the wrong ship, they still managed to get around 300, 400, 500 DPS, which was crazy. And this ship could get around 1.1 thousand DPS in the last beta, which was ridiculous, since the Macariel has around 1000 DPS. And the battlecruiser, that thing, I think I made it to have 2.5k DPS during the final days of the last beta, and it was hitting like a truck. It was almost 10,000 hits per cycle every single time, and that ship was pretty much my favorite. And I'm very curious to see how much damage I can get from the prototype battlecruiser when I get the prototype battlecruiser. Since I think I can get around the same damage, maybe, but again, there was that 40% nerf, so I expect around maybe 3.5 thousand damage per cycle on the battlecruiser, which it will be very interesting to test out. And of course, we are going to get those ships in around 15 days, pretty much at the 30-day mark of the release of the game, so around mid-September. And well, that is around the corner, theoretically. Well then, that ship is causing me some problems. I cannot approach that caracal for some reason, and this is pretty much why I should fit a micro warp drive, because this ship is very slow with a afterburner. I don't know why. Probably it has to do something with the ship's mass, but I definitely do need to place a micro warp drive on this ship. Since the micro warp drive will give me a lot of a greater speed boost, and of course since this ship has a very stable capacitor, I can use the micro warp drive without the capacitor battery. Since my micro warp drive skills are actually pretty high up, and it doesn't use that much capacitor anymore as it used to. And so far, the damage output can also be improved a lot. Now, you can also try to fit all of these three particle accelerators for the low slot and to pretty much go for full DPS. That's pretty much one of the potential PvP fits for this ship, because you can do that with a decent logistic that will support you, and potentially that these ships can be very lethal. And one day, pretty much when I get the normal when I get the original faction battle cruiser and of course destroyer, I'll be testing those ships out, and I'll be comparing the performances between these two ships. I think that would be very interesting to actually compare the differences between this ship and its original counterpart. And well, so far this ship is indeed very efficient and very effective at missions. So if you're looking for a ship that you can pretty much use for, at least for PvE, then this ship is so far good to go in that aspect, since you can make it be tanky. It offers fantastic performance for a prototype, and it offers a fantastic performance for a special edition ship, or should I say it offers fantastic performance for a ship that's meant to be a collectionable item. And in that aspect, yeah, it is absolutely doable to do advanced missions with this ship without much of a problem. And of course you have to keep in mind that you will have to work on the rigs for the ship, and of course on the skills. And of course you have to keep in mind that you will not have the bonus per level on this ship, because it is after all a prototype and it is a collectionable item. But if you don't have any other ship, or if you just want to use the ship for PvE, you can. Of course you have to be very careful, and in case you lose the ship, make sure that you have the vouchers, since if you don't have these and if you lose the ship, then it can potentially be a big loss. Since keep in mind, as time goes on, the number of these ships will go down, and at one point these ships will be super rare. So you can either use them, or you can either just place them in the hangar. Now so far I did play the Amar missions, and I did run the Caldera missions and Galante missions with this ship, and all of these missions are pretty doable. Now as for Anomalies, I wouldn't fly this ship in low sec, to be honest, since currently there's a lot of combat going on over there, and I've seen a lot of fleets in low sec, and I was chased a couple times. So using this ship in low sec, while you can absolutely, I wouldn't recommend, because it can be rather very risky. And as for the Anomalies, I did Anomalies up to tier 5 and tier 6 with this ship, of course with a slightly different build, and all I have to say, it works really good, and it does outperform my Caracal at the moment, which is indeed kind of funny. So this ship offers excellent performance, and you can use it for pretty much anything you like. But of course, that is kind of risky. So you have to keep that in mind when you play this ship. Well then, let's kill this last rat. I think this will be the last one before I have to end the video. I am very surprised that this ship is indeed still this good, and very glad that I did get the modules for it, and absolutely looking forward for the battlecruiser of this faction, since that battlecruiser is going to be very interesting, since that ship is going to be very expensive and that ship is going to be also powerful, and we will see how much powerful it will remain after the nerfs. But it will be indeed still very powerful, since after all it's using the decomposers, which currently I think decomposers are the highest damage weapon in the game. And well, I personally can't wait to test that ship out. And who knows, I might as well fly these ships in PvP, just for fun, and just of course to test out their performance. Well then, thank you for watching. I hope that this was helpful, and well, as always, take care, fly safe, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.